this example is asking us to differentiate, which just means find the derivative of this huge equation here. And then they put in this with respect to x piece just to tell us what variable we care about. So looking at this, you can kind of already sense that this is going to be derivatives inside of derivatives. There's definitely multiple things happening here. And you got to decide first and foremost, what's the primary function? What's primarily happening with this so that we can figure out what that main derivative is. So as you're writing the problem down, kind of listen to what you're saying. You're just saying, okay, I've got 5x cubed minus 45x squared plus 35x, that times 5x to the fourth plus 3x squared, all of that raised to the ninth. Sort of that, all of that raised to the ninth should kind of give you a hint of what your primary rule is. The other thing I tell my students when they're doing these is to identify what I just call the shape. There's three main shapes when you're looking at a derivative problem, and whichever shape you've got kind of tells you what your primary rule should be. So I always say squint your eyes and look at the problem. And when you squint your eyes, does it look like your main thing happening is you have two chunks being multiplied together? If that's what's going on, then the primary rule would be the product rule in that situation. When you squint your eyes, do you primarily see that you've got two chunks being divided? Well, if that's what you're looking at, then that would mean that you need to use the quotient rule as your primary rule. If you look down on your page, though, and you see you've got a bunch of stuff sort of raised to a power right here, this is a classic chain rule setup. Or if you've got one of your special case derivatives, right? One of those ones we just have to memorize. Those are very often chain rule situations. And so we would want to follow our chain rule as the primary rule. So as I squint my eyes and look over here, I sort of lose sight of the fact that there's two things being multiplied, and what I really see is primarily I've got something inside a set of parentheses raised to a power. And so that tells me that the primary rule that I need to be following right now is my chain rule. So my chain rule recipe, my chain rule saying that I use goes d in times d out. So the derivative of whatever is inside those parentheses times the derivative of what's on the outside of them. So looking inside my parentheses, I can see that that's my inside piece. All of that stuff is inside that ninth power. So the inside piece is 5x cubed minus 45x squared plus 35x times 5x to the fourth plus 3x squared. So now what I'm able to do is I'm able to break this into little bite-sized math problems. And so when I look at just the inside piece and I say to myself, I need the dn, I need the derivative of that inside piece. So I have to play sort of the same game. And I say, well, what does that primarily look like? What does that rule that I need to use to find that derivative? Well, here, hopefully what you're seeing is that this looks like two chunks being multiplied. And so we'd be wanting to apply our product rule. My product rule saying that I use goes f g prime plus g f prime. I label one chunk the f piece, the other chunk the g, and then I just break them into their bite-sized little math problems. So I'll call this chunk here the f piece. So f is 5x cubed minus 45x squared plus 35x. And then my g chunk is this piece right here. So then g equals 5x to the fourth plus 3x squared. So to follow this secondary rule right now, I need to go find an f prime and I need to go find a g prime. So now looking at just that f piece, I say, well, how do I take the derivative of f? Well, that just is going to be our power rule. Again, like I always say, everything seems to roll back through the power rule. So the power rule here just says bring the power down, and then step 2, subtract 1 from the power. So following our power rule, we just bring the 3 down. 3 times 5 gets us 15x. Subtracting 1 from the power gets us x squared. We bring our 2 down. 2 times negative 45 gets us negative 90x, and subtracting 1 from the power would get us x to the first. Here we have 35x, and there's an unwritten 1 on that x, so that we bring that 1 down. 1 times 35 is 35, and then we end up with that x to the 0, and like we've talked about before, anything to the 0 power is just 1 even x, so that just gives us 35 times 1. Done with our f prime, and now we go over and look at that g piece. And we say, okay, what do I need to do to take the derivative of g? Well, again, that's just a bunch of stuff being added and subtracted, so that's just our power rule process. So we'll just roll our power rule on g here. So again, bring our power down. 4 times 5 gets us 20x. Subtract 1 from the power gets us x to the third. Bring the 2 down. We get 2 times 3 gets us 6x. Subtracting 1 from the power gets us x to the first. And so now that we've got the f and the f prime, the g and the g prime, we have everything we need to go ahead and follow our product rule recipe. So we're going to bring all this stuff back to get our d in. So the product rule says, first go grab the f piece. So I go grab the f piece. Then it says, multiply that by g prime. So I go grab my g prime. 20x to the third plus 6x. And then plus, because that's what the rule says, go grab the g piece. So we go grab our g piece. So that will be 5x to the fourth plus 3x squared. Multiply that by f prime. So that chunk right there. And we get 15x squared minus 90x plus 35. So we are done now with our d in, the derivative of the inside, which was part of our chain rule, which was the primary rule that we are following. Now what we need to do is we need to go find the derivative of that outside piece. And so when we go to find the derivative of the outside here, the out is really just a big power rule. It's all that stuff that's inside there raised to the 9th power. We don't really care about the stuff inside. Technically, all of this 5x cubed minus 45x squared plus 35x. It's hard to even squeeze it all in, right? All of that stuff, 35x, I might as well squeeze it in so that you can see what it looks like fully. Don't want to skip any process here. So all of that stuff, 35x times 5x to the fourth plus 3x squared, all of that is inside our 9th power here. But we don't care about it. When we're doing the derivative of the outside, this is just a big power rule. You're going to bring the 9 down in front. You leave alone all that junk that you already took the derivative of, so all that stuff there, and then subtract 1 from the power, so 9 minus 1 is 8. So again, all that stuff that was on the inside, it comes along for the ride. 5x squared minus 5x cubed minus 45x squared plus 35x. All of that times 5x to the fourth plus 3x squared. All of that is still inside our parentheses. So once you have that, now you have all the pieces you need to follow your chain rule recipe. You've got your D in, you've got your D out, and now you're just going to bring that all together at the bottom of your page here and hope that you've got enough room. Some of these that they make you do are ridiculously long. It's just a battle of wills. But it's just about putting the right pieces in the right places. Break it into bite-sized chunks. So our derivative says go find the D in. So we go grab the D in, which is that huge thing. So 5x cubed minus 45x squared plus 35x times 20x to the third plus 6x plus 5x to the fourth plus 3x squared times 15x squared minus 90x plus 35. That is our D in. And all of that, that's kind of one of the tricky parts on that. All of that needs to be multiplied by the D out. So you need one big, huge set of parentheses or brackets on the outside. And then I'll go ahead and erase my power rule now because I definitely need that space. And now we're going to multiply that by the D out. So we grab our D out. So times 9, parentheses, leave all the junk alone that we already took the derivative of. 5x to the 4th plus 3x squared, and then subtract 1 from the power to the 8th power. And that's it. You leave it there. That is the derivative of that big chunk. You don't need to simplify it. No one's asking you to do that. You know, again, the key with these problems when there's derivatives inside of derivatives is you need to define what your primary rule is. Use that to start breaking this problem into bite-sized chunks and following any secondary rules that you may run into as you come through the problem. Thanks for watching my video. If you liked it, please click that like button and subscribe. And also share it with your friends and anyone else you know who might be crying about an upcoming AP Calc test. You can find more videos from me, more sample AP Calc questions, and my complete AP Calc study guide over at my website, apcalcprep.com. Have a great one.